Serious? Former atheist, now theist, Redditors, what convinced you? I don't know if would I call myself a theist now, but last January I broke my leg, and as I was limping around campus post surgery, this young man came up to me and asked if he could say a prayer for my leg. I didn't want to be rude, so I let him. He seemed like he was genuinely interested in hearing what happened, what I had to say, and was actually empathizing with me, a total stranger he just saw walking down the street. He sat there on the ground touching my cast and saying one of the most heartfelt prayers I'd heard for a solid 3-4 minutes, and then he just said thank you and left. I used to be pretty anti-religion and thought his was BS and thought pretty lowly of people who were religious, but the fact that such a belief in something, so much devotion and compassion could arise from something like this really made me think and re-evaluate my mindset and opinions on spirituality and religion. Like I said, I'm not really sure if I myself am theistic now, but I feel really warm inside when I think about that guy and how his devotion to God made my day a little better. For me, I was really down. Horrible job, horrible girlfriend, on the brink of being homeless, with no direction in life. Talking to my mom one night, she is very religious, but did what anyone should do, and allowed me to find my path without shoveling down my throat. And she simply said, I know you don't like hearing this, but why don't you try praying about it? It can't hurt. The logic made sense, as I was desperate at the time, so I gave it a shot. I said the deepest, most heartfelt prayer I could muster. Not one of those simple say it and don't expect anything prayers, but this came from the inner depths of my soul. I only asked for one thing, to make something, anything better. I'm literally tearing up as I write this, just thinking about that night. A few days later, things began to change. I had an offer out of nowhere to take over a friend's lease for an apartment that I could afford. It was a crap hole, but compared to my car, it was a castle. I was so thankful. From there, things just happened one after the other, and I was convinced that for years, I was wrong. To this day, I pray daily and believe in God. Granted, some things didn't change with me. I still believe evolution. I just believe that God was the architect. I believe in same-gender marriage, because if God can do what he's done for me, after not believing in him for so long, he doesn't judge a person for who they love. Now I have 2 degrees, a beautiful wife, a great house, and honestly feel that 100% of it is due to him. I grew up in a very twisted and almost cult-like church from the ages of 7-18. During this time, I felt the religion that was being shoved down my throat was not only illogical but oppressive. I would wonder to myself how a loving God would have so many rules and regulations to be accepted and loved by him. After I turned 20, years of this darkened doctrine clouding my life, I decided to do my own research and find out what I believe. It was a very uncomfortable and almost painful journey, but I was driven to find what was going to be the truth in my life. I have found that in my heart and mind, God does exist. I have gotten to know who he is by personal prayers and questions answered, and this belief is only strengthened day by day. People ask, how do prayers get answered? How do you have a relationship with something you can't see? I will provide a short example by what I mean when I say answered prayers and a relationship with God. I was trying to pay my way through nursing school. Working 2 jobs while doing this was killing me, but I was determined to make it work. When tuition was due, I was $734.68 short. My parents couldn't help and it was too short notice to apply for a loan. I told no one about this struggle and miserably accepted the fact that I would have to sit that semester out. I prayed about it and put my sadness and concerns on God. I read my Bible that night and I came across this verse, Jeremiah 33:3, call unto me and I will answer thee and show you great and mighty things that thou knowest not. I can't explain the amount of overflowing peace that filled my heart. The next morning there was an envelope in the mailbox with my name on it. There was $750 inside with a note that said, from a stranger, do good in the world. 3 years later, I still have no clue who gave me that money. I could go on and on about things like this that has happened in my life. I've had people try to say my experiences are nothing but coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in a loving and caring God. Recovery from addiction. My spirituality feels like a mix of intelligent design, deism, and Zen. I'm extremely loosely theistic, but I believe that there's something out there, and sobriety has helped me finally realize it isn't aliens and other feds. Best of all, I'm not its randomly chosen martyr, and the thing is most likely okay with me. I grew up in a somewhat practicing Muslim household. From a young child I kinda had faith in God, if you can call it that, but like most kids mostly because it's what I was taught. Fast forward to high school and I got into all kids of trouble, drugs, booze, partying, etc. At some point when I was stoned I had a deep conversation with an atheist and just couldn't comprehend how he could deny that there is a higher power that we are answerable to. We are amazing creatures, and witness little miracles all day every day. It can't all be an accident. Fast forward to when I found out I was going to be a dad. Still kind of a mess, but realized I better get my crap together. My girlfriend was also from a Muslim household, but they seem more religious and she had more faith, although she was next to me through all the partying and narcotics. After her grandfather died she had kind of a vision while on shrooms and soon after started to pray and become religious. I was resisting and actually going through depression, was on meds, but eventually agreed to listen to a CD by a young preacher named Yasir Kadhi called Two Shahadas. The most fascinating takeaway was learning that if I take one small step towards God, he will take a leap towards me and pull me back in. So I reluctantly tried praying one night and ended up crying like a retard with my head to the carpet, prostrating to God. Slowly I started to feel like a void had been filled. I started to learn about Islam and how it complements science. I just felt whole again, and by the time my son was born we gave him a Muslim name and raised him to love God and all his creations. I got introduced to Buddhism when I was an atheist. It really connected with me and I noticed spirituality was filling a long empty void. For me it boils down to believing in order or randomness. I am well educated and understand how our universe is an incredible dance between the sciences we've uncovered, physics, chemistry, evolution, etc. But as I become more and more educated on these things and start to dive into each topic, there always seems to be something missing. Everything in our universe is in a perpetual battle against chaos and randomness. Cosmic rays are bombarding DNA. Stars grapple and tear at each other in gravitational wrestling matches. The moment any order is achieved in this universe, forces try to tear it down. And yet that is exactly what this universe wants to do. Create order. Floating rocks want to be planets. Organic molecules want to be proteins. Cellular organisms want to be more complex. Except viruses. Frick viruses. And so as I learn more about this violent and random universe we call home, I feel that something is missing. Why is it that as we discover more and more about the sciences, what we learn more about is an order to things? To me, this order is beautiful and true. There is more art and beauty in physics, math and the simple fractal stretching of a tree to the sky than we can possibly imagine. To me, this is God. Do I believe in an old white guy in the sky writing rules for dark energy? Number. But I do believe that I am just simply unable to grasp the concept of this deity, and I'm okay with that. I see his work in the world around me and in myself. Am I religious? Yes. But the value in religion to me is to bring me closer to understanding this universal order, but on a human level. We don't have a science devoted to the human soul spirit. And yet this too begs for order. For us to want to be better, more than we are. But we have centuries of religious thought, work completed by some very smart people of their day. It's stupid to disregard that just because you don't believe in one religion's traditions or a particular aspect of religion. So I go to church and read and learn. And because I don't exactly know what God is, sometimes I do talk to him. He seems to like the same things I do. Involuntary denial about the idea that what we see is all that there is. My mind just won't let me accept that anymore. I suppose I went from being an atheist to being an agnostic theist. At the root of my beliefs is a concept of the massive, perhaps infinite, scale of space and time. In the same way that an ant on an anthill lives in total ignorance of the greater world, we cannot possibly comprehend the true nature of the universe we live in. Even if we were somehow able to sense it, I doubt our minds are equipped to truly understand it. For all we know, the entire universe is merely a self-contained cell in the body of a God being. For all we know, time is cyclical and we live our life an infinite number of times as the universe continually expands and collapses on itself. Considering how absurdly insignificant and ignorant we are in this grand machine of existence, I think it's extremely probable that something which fit our concept of a god exists, but it's likely unknowable and incomprehensible to us. Likewise, it's easy for me to imagine a scientifically justifiable afterlife. If we are no more than the sum of our atoms and either an infinite number of dimensions exists or time is infinite, then we would, at some point in time or space, be recreated in precisely the same form as we existed in this life. And because our consciousness could not register the time which had passed, perhaps we would, from our perspective, flow seamlessly from one life to the next. So while I wouldn't consider myself to be an adherent to any religion, because I highly doubt that any of us mortal, limited men could know the true nature of God, I suppose I am a theist in that I do have a belief, which I guess is faith-based, that a god does exist. I am surprised that nobody else has mentioned the study of the human body. I'm not talking about the vague biology or exercise science classes. I'm talking about the highest level gross anatomy, kinesiology, and physiology classes in grad and medical school. I was raised secularly. The spiritual aspect of life wasn't an emphasis in my family, but I am saying that with the study of the human body at the highest level, I have begun to consider the viewpoint of intelligent design, whether it is divine or otherwise, the marvelous wonders of the human body, its structure, function, interdependency of systems and the staggering complexity of homeostasis are beyond words. Sure, it can be described, but will it really ever be understood? The concept of intelligent design still makes me cringe, but if you remove the associated social stigma and philosophically, objectively consider the idea, it has merit. So yeah, not an appeal to emotion here, no confounds of social learning, nurture argument, or a trauma in my life that brought me to God. Just a large amount of data that gradually built to the inexorable conclusion that we were designed. Now, consider the operational definition of God, a being of incomprehensible power, intellect and wisdom who has brought everything in our world into existence. Is it not within the realm of possibility that such a being exists? Forget the sophomoric level of education presented to you at college. Yes, I mock the traditional college education. It's a joke to believe it's either worthy of respect or adequate in today's world, and consider the idea without biases. Theists can be mocked. I've certainly done more than my share. I once had contempt for the idea of magic sky fairies, but consider the non-magic version of an omnipotent, for all practical purposes, being. What else could have created life so long ago? Are random mutation and natural selection any less loony? What's more, why is it assumed that a god can't design creatures who adapt to their environment? The dumber versions of theists and atheists can't conceive that a being made life to operate perfectly within the realm of scientific principles. The final pillar of my non-theistic life, the notion of accepting just one idea based on faith rather than demanding empirical evidence, is slowly crumbling away. Everyone takes something on faith, even the notion that empiricism keeps their own viewpoint unassailable, which it doesn't. For me it's more along the lines of, how did everything play out so perfectly? How are who we are today? I do believe in evolution. I think God made evolution as a more smooth transition to what we call human. I also believe in science. People say it's crazy to think a god created a world and people, but I think it's crazy that somehow the earth is positioned perfectly. The gravity of this planet is perfect. The oxygen level is perfect. The day and night cycle is perfect. If there's no such thing as perfect, how are we alive? So I went from hardcore belligerent atheist to Baptist Christian. I was originally raised in church sort of, but was fairly agnostic till about high school when I was having a conversation with my youth pastor in which he basically said in response to my questions that I should just believe it because that is what they believe. So I said screw that and decided to never have anything to do with Christians again. I still went to church to keep my mum happy, but I openly mocked anyone that identified as Christian both at my church and school. Then I heard about a ministry internship in Texas that did IT and video production, which is what I wanted to do since I was still involved in my church. They would pay for it. Free school. And I could go there, which also helped to get my mum off my back. I got to go out of state and experience some college life since I had not gone away to school. While I was there I was taught hermeneutics and I was given answers to the questions that I had. This basically started a journey where I would read through the Bible and write down all the questions that I had and point out all of what I thought were contradictions in the text. After wrestling with it for about a year and allowing my presuppositions to be challenged, I came to the logical conclusion that the Bible was true, and since I believed it to be true, then I needed to obey what it said and take it seriously. There are more details, but that is the basic gist of it. I took a scientific and logical approach to it and came to the conclusion that the Bible was true. I was not pleased with my conclusion and was fairly pissed about it, which I have since gotten over. I was always skeptical, always thought if there was a god, he hated me. Haven't had the easiest life so far. So one day, I was strung out in my room, and a vision hit me. It said to start praying. So I did. I prayed for things to make me better, to make it easier to stay on the right path. That was a year ago. Today, I am clean, active, and for the most part content with my overall self. This made me believe there was a god, and that he does love me. For me it was a very sudden change. I told God that I would give him a chance, and from that point to now my life has been radically changed. I have never been filled with more joy or passion than when I am serving God. Not to mention the relationship that I have with God is astounding. We talk all the time. The relationship part of it is what got me. I'm a theist on principle because I think rampant dismissal of spirituality and the increasing mechanization of our worldview and lifestyle is one of the more pathological elements of modern society. We throw ourselves into so many irrational systems every day. To dismiss religion seemed arbitrary. There is so much other stuff in life that we never put through such rational, cynical scrutiny as we do towards people sitting in a church. Well, that obviously is not a guy called John McLean. It's an image projected on a screen of a man named Bruce Willis who posed in front of a couple of cameras in the mid-80s. Well, obviously that I watch is just another piece of plastic that glows light, and so I should have no reason to desire it. Also, as I grow older I more and more found this humanist secular idea of just do good, to simplify things, to be incomplete, and hasn't really fared well in practice. That technocratic, logistical view of Richard Dawkins is the same view promoted by Starbucks when they have a sign that says we believe in fixing the environment together next to a bunch of wasteful single serving coffee packages, or Apple appealing to hippie here's to the crazy ones ethos while supporting sweatshop labor. As I grow up, I keep getting a sense that if you want to sustain a radical, ambitious view of the world, it takes religious practice, boundaries, and being able to point towards a higher power. Christ had an unfathomable imagination. Love one another, turn the cheek, walk with a friend for 2 miles, not to mention hold my beer. I'm gonna get nailed to this cross for you. And to acknowledge and honor validate that imagination. And to follow the imagination takes blind, irrational belief and drastic self-denial, and to give some time less is a cop-out to me. You have been visited by the bee of jazz. Like this video to have your ears filled with cool jazz. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.